Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. She never wore red lipstick. Never. That was our rule. It's weird, right? Most couples have rules about passwords or bank accounts or not watching the next Netflix episode without each other. Ours was about a color. That rich, bold fire truck red. She said it made her feel too obvious. Said it wasn't her style. So, when I saw her in that crimson shade, standing under string lights at her company's rooftop party, lips just pulled away from someone who wasn't me. I knew. I knew the moment was real. I knew the kiss was intentional. I knew the version of her I had loved was gone. Let me rewind 14 hours. I wasn't even supposed to be there. The only reason I showed up was because I couldn't sleep. I hadn't been sleeping much lately. Not since she started coming home later than usual with wine on her breath and stories that didn't line up. She said it was a milestone event for her firm. She told me partners would be there. Said it wasn't a +1 kind of thing, and that it would be stressful and boring. I nodded like I always do, pretending like I wasn't shrinking a little more each time she pulled away. That night, I couldn't stop pacing the living room. The anxiety was electric, crawling up my arms, buzzing under my skin. Something was wrong. Not dramatic, not movie scene wrong, but quiet, cruel, slow burn wrong. At 9:47 p.m., I made a decision that even now makes me question who I've become. I got in the car and drove to the address she'd left on the kitchen whiteboard. The glass house, 10th floor, 28 Kensington Avenue. She didn't even try to hide it. That's what made it worse. I parked 2 blocks away, walked up the back steps. No plan, no excuse, just a storm in my chest. When the elevator opened, the music hit me first, jazz mixed with ambient house beats. A waiter passed me without a glance. Everyone was dressed to kill, and then I saw her, red lips, curled hair, laughing with her head tilted just slightly. She looked alive, and I realized she hadn't looked at me like that in months. And then came the moment. She leaned in, he leaned in. The kiss happened like a rehearsed line in a play I didn't audition for. Her hand was on his shoulder. His fingers traced her spine. The red lipstick rule shattered. I didn't speak. I didn't flinch. I just turned around and walked toward the elevator like I was in someone else's body. No one stopped me. Not even her. By 7 a.m., she was at my door, crying, begging, hands pressed to the wood like she was holding herself up. Please, Colin, please just let me talk. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I wasn't thinking. Please just let me explain. But I didn't open the door. I sat in the hallway on the other side, knees pulled to my chest like a child, and whispered to no one. She wore red. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't just crack you open, it echoes. You hear it in places it was never supposed to exist. I sat there behind the door, knees tight to my chest, while Mallory's cries bled through the wood like steam through old wallpaper. And all I could think about was the mirror in our hallway. It's stupid, really. I had this habit of watching her reflection when she didn't know I was there. Not in a creepy way, just little moments. When she'd fix her earrings before work, when she'd practice fake smiles before family events, or when she thought she was alone and her face went completely blank. That's how I used to measure her happiness. If her reflection looked tired, I'd bring home flowers. If she smiled softly, I'd take it as a win. But lately, that mirror had been quiet. Like it didn't want to reflect the truth anymore. The banging on the door finally stopped. Her sobs faded down the hall. I imagined her sitting on the front step, makeup smudged, heels in her hands, hair curled like it hadn't been for me in years. I didn't move. I didn't say a word. I just stayed curled up, like I had folded myself into a shape small enough to hide inside. When I finally stood up, the air was still thick with the scent of her perfume, something floral and sweet, something that now made my skin crawl. I walked through the apartment like a stranger. Our wedding photo still sat on the bookshelf, her favorite coffee mug still on the counter, her bobby pins still stabbed into the bathroom soap like careless little weapons. All of it looked offensive, like a crime scene staged to look like love. I opened her nightstand drawer and found a necklace I didn't recognize. Silver, delicate, not her style, still in the box. With a tiny note inside, just a scribbled dash, B, no name, just an initial. It hit me like a gut punch. He'd given her a gift. This wasn't a mistake. This was a plan. I should have felt rage. I should have broken something. Instead, I sat down on the edge of the bed and whispered, "How long?" Not to her, just to the ceiling, to the ghosts of the promises we made. The bed felt cold even though it was warm. You don't understand that until it happens to you. When the place you sleep suddenly feels like a stranger's bed in a room you didn't build. That day, I didn't text her. I didn't call. I didn't post vague quotes on Facebook or pour my soul into a group chat. I just vanished. I turned off my phone, unplugged the router, and left the apartment. I didn't know where I was going. I walked for miles. Through the city, through alleyways, through places that smelled like burnt espresso and gas leaks and broken dreams. I found myself in front of a cheap diner we used to visit in our first year together. Back then, we'd sit in the corner booth, legs touching under the table, splitting pancakes and talking about how we'd grow old on a farm with 3 cats and a lemon tree. That night, the booth was empty. I didn't go in. Instead, I walked back home hours later. The sun was setting. There was a single note taped to the door. "Callan, I swear I didn't mean to hurt you. I was drunk. It meant nothing. Please let me fix this, please." No signature, no lipstick this time, just desperation in cursive. I didn't open the door. I didn't even tear the note off. I left it there like a scar on the front of the apartment, a warning or maybe a confession. Her handwriting was too neat to be written in panic. She took time. That bothered me more than it should have. I kept walking back and forth past it, hoping the wind might rip it away for me, but it clung to the wood like it belonged there. The silence between us stretched into the next day. I stayed inside. She didn't come back. That felt like another kind of answer. I finally turned my phone back on, mostly out of muscle memory. The messages came in like a flood. 3 missed calls from her mom, 1 from her boss, strangely, 23 texts from Mallory, each one more unstable than the last. I read the first 3, then skimmed the rest like I was watching someone else's drama unfold. "Please talk to me. It was just a stupid mistake. You're blowing this out of proportion. Don't throw away everything for 1 kiss." That last one hit me hardest. 1 kiss? 1? As if betrayal has a measurement. As if heartbreak only counts if it crosses a threshold. I remember sitting there with my back against the kitchen cabinet, reading that message over and over. 1 kiss? It wasn't just the kiss. It was the planning behind it, the secret texts, the red lipstick, the necklace, the way she didn't pull away. Later that evening, my phone buzzed again. A voicemail. I don't usually listen to them, but something in me broke. I hit play. Her voice was soft, almost rehearsed. "Callan, I don't know how to explain what happened without sounding like the villain. I had too much to drink. Everyone was celebrating. Ben kept buying rounds. I didn't even realize how far it had gone until I saw your face. The second I saw you, I knew I ruined everything. Please, please talk to me. Don't shut me out. We've been through worse. You know we have." I nearly laughed at that. Worse? When? There was never a worse. There was only the 2 of us floating through the quiet of our routine. The real pain was that I thought we were happy. Not movie happy, not fireworks happy. Just safe. And that illusion shattered with a single glance across a rooftop. I sat down and made a list. Yes, a list. It's something I do when my brain spirals. I wrote, "She lied about it being just employees. She wore lipstick she promised never to wear. She flirted by text. She kissed him. She didn't stop. She didn't chase after me. She left a note instead of a face. It was item 7 that broke me. If I mattered that much, wouldn't she have stayed, camped outside, screamed through the walls? But she left a note, like a neighbor apologizing for noise complaints. Around 11:30 p.m., I heard her car. She didn't come to the door. Instead, I saw her silhouette pacing outside. She stood there for nearly 10 minutes before placing something gently on the porch. I waited until her car disappeared before opening the door. It was a framed photo of us from 3 years ago. The trip to Oregon. We were standing on a cliffside, wrapped in windbreakers and smiles. She had written on the back, "Remember what we had before all this." The ink was smudged. I stared at that photo for a long time, and for a brief moment, I felt that old ache. The one that made me want to fix things, to forgive, to rebuild. I should have thrown the photo in the trash, or at least shoved it in a drawer and walked away. But instead, I propped it on the hallway table, staring at it every time I passed like it was a dare. The smiles felt fake now, even though I remembered them being real. There's something unsettling about knowing a moment you once cherished has been retroactively poisoned. 2 more days passed in silence. She didn't knock again. She didn't call. But I knew she was still circling. Mutual friends started texting. Her cousin Emma, who always didn't want to take sides, suddenly reached out. I ignored all of them. I knew how this worked. She was building her version of the story before I could tell mine. But then I got the email. Subject line: dinner? Just talk. Please. She had made a reservation, our usual place. Nothing fancy, just a small Italian spot we'd found years ago on a rainy Tuesday. It was where we used to split the same chicken piccata and pretend the world outside didn't exist. And now she wanted to sit across from me like nothing had happened. I told myself I wouldn't go. I told myself 20 times. And yet, that night, I found myself pulling on a jacket, grabbing the keys, and driving like my body had a mind of its own. I arrived early, sat in the car, and debated turning around. But a part of me, the weak part, the maybe she didn't mean it part, wanted answers. Not closure, not forgiveness, just the ugly, gritty truth. She was already seated when I walked in. Red eyes, nervous hands, wearing a dress I bought her last Christmas. She stood up as if we were still playing house. I didn't hug her. I didn't even nod. I just sat. She started with small talk, asked if I was eating, said I looked tired. I stared at her until the silence made her squirm. Then she finally said it. It wasn't going to be more than that night. I didn't flinch. I just waited. I mean, I wasn't planning anything with him. It was stupid. Heat of the moment. I'd been drinking. Everyone was kissing people. I thought it was just harmless fun. I nearly laughed. Harmless fun. The way her lips didn't hesitate. The way she pressed against him like she had done it before. The way she didn't chase after me until the next morning. All that was fun? You had a necklace from him, I said quietly. That stopped her. She froze. You went through my things? Not until after the kiss. She looked away. And that was all the confirmation I needed. It wasn't one night. It never is. I stood up before the entrees even arrived. Wait, she said. Don't leave like this. You already did. After that dinner, I expected to feel something resembling relief. I thought walking out mid-meal would grant me some pathetic sense of control. But it didn't. It just left a new kind of silence in my chest. The kind that buzzes, like your body is waiting for a punch that never comes. I slept on the couch that night, not because I had to, but because I couldn't bring myself to go back into that bedroom. It still smelled like her shampoo, still had a dent in the pillow from her head. I laid there in the dark staring at the ceiling fan, letting it spin out every ugly thought I was too afraid to say aloud. The next morning, I got a text from Amos, my oldest friend and the only person who didn't tiptoe around me. He said, "You need to see this," and attached a screenshot. It was a post on one of those semi-private local networking pages. Nothing viral. Just a few hundred people, mostly professionals, sharing job leads and local events. But someone had shared a blurry photo of Mallory and Ben in an elevator. And not just any elevator, the one in her office building. The timestamp was from 2 weeks before the rooftop party. The caption: "Heard the HR manager's not exactly following HR policies." I couldn't breathe. 2 weeks. 2 weeks before the kiss. 2 weeks before she even started acting distant. This wasn't spontaneous. This wasn't just a stupid kiss. This was premeditated, ongoing, hidden, practiced. I didn't respond to Amos. I just sat there, staring at the image. Her body leaned into his, hand on his chest, her eyes closed. Intimate, familiar, like it wasn't the first time. I forwarded the image to her without a word. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. I didn't answer. 20 minutes after that, the doorbell rang. I didn't answer that either. She knocked, harder this time, then softer, then sat outside again like a ghost trying to haunt her way back in. Eventually, I heard her voice through the door. It wasn't what it looked like. That line, that stupid, broken, overused line. "I didn't even know anyone took that picture," she added. "It wasn't a thing, Callan." I was confused. I finally answered, not by opening the door, but by speaking through it. "Did he buy the necklace before or after that elevator ride?" Silence. "I don't know," she said eventually. Her voice cracked on the last word. "I do," I replied. "It was after. Because you were already his." She didn't argue. I think for once she understood there was nothing left to spin. Later that night, I went to a hardware store and changed the locks. I didn't tell her. I didn't threaten. I just quietly made sure that if she came back again, it would be the last time she'd ever walk through that door. But that's not where this ends. Not even close. Because 2 days later, I received an email from someone I never expected. And what they told me blew the entire story wide open. It landed in my inbox at 3:12 a.m. No subject. Just her boss's name. I almost deleted it, thinking maybe it was some auto notification or a misclick. But something made me open it. Maybe curiosity, maybe that itch in my spine that told me this story wasn't done ruining me yet. The message was short, barely 3 paragraphs. His name was Arthur Knowles, Director of Operations. I remembered Mallory talking about him once or twice. Said he was old school, wore the same 2 suits all year, ran meetings like war zones. His email read like it was typed by someone who'd been debating it for hours. He said he wasn't writing to get involved in our personal matters, but he felt obligated to inform me that Ben, the man Mallory kissed, had been formally reported twice in the last 3 months for inappropriate conduct with junior employees. One of the complaints came from a new intern who mentioned she had seen him acting unprofessionally with Mallory, though she'd asked not to be named. Arthur continued, saying HR had failed to escalate the complaints properly, something he admitted with thinly veiled frustration. "I'm not sure how much your wife has told you," he wrote, "but from where I sit, things were more than just flirtation. If you're under the impression this was some isolated moment, I thought you should know it wasn't." I reread that last sentence 6 times. More than just flirtation. This wasn't some spark at a party. It was a pattern, a web. And Mallory was right in the center of it, protecting him, covering for him, or maybe just too wrapped up in it to care who got hurt. That's what ate at me the most. Not the betrayal, not even the lie, but the apathy. How casually she'd let her double life spill into mine like a slow leak, soaking everything we built until it all started to rot. I didn't reply to Arthur. I didn't need to. What could I say? Thanks for confirming my life is a joke. I sat at the kitchen table for nearly an hour, just staring at our old anniversary album. The cover was cracked, the gold lettering worn. She had once insisted we print everything. No digital galleries, no cloud memories, just real pages we could hold in our hands. "So they feel permanent," she said. I didn't realize permanence could become a curse. Later that morning, I packed a bag. Not for me, for her. I didn't fold anything neatly. I tossed in sweaters, shoes, a toothbrush, the framed Oregon photo, and the damn necklace. I zipped it shut like sealing a coffin and left it outside the door with a note that read, "You can have your things, but not your place here. Not anymore." She didn't respond for hours. Then, just before sunset, she showed up. I heard her pull into the driveway. She didn't knock this time, just stood there. I watched her through the peephole, hair tied back, face drained of every ounce of pride. She didn't pick up the bag. She just stared at the door. Then she leaned forward, rested her head against the wood, and whispered something I couldn't quite hear. I didn't open it. I couldn't. Because Arthur's final sentence was still echoing in my head. "If you're under the impression this was some isolated moment, I thought you should know it wasn't." And now I knew. The bag was gone the next morning. She didn't knock, didn't try to talk, just came and took it. I felt both relieved and hollow at the same time, like I had removed something toxic from my bloodstream, but still had to survive the withdrawal. I told myself this was closure, that I could finally move on, start breathing like a human again. But life has a way of laughing at your attempts to tie things up neatly. Because later that evening, someone slid an envelope under my door. No note, no name, just a plain white envelope with a USB drive inside. I hesitated for a long time before plugging it in. Everything in me screamed not to look. But I've learned that silence doesn't protect you. It just delays the detonation. When I opened the only file on the drive, it was a folder of screenshots. Hundreds of them, emails, chat logs, calendar invites, all between Mallory and Ben. The timestamps dated back over 4 months, and they weren't just flirtatious or suggestive. They were coordinated, calculated, meetups at hotels, lunches that didn't match her work schedule. One message from her read, "You make me feel like who I used to be. I don't have to perform around you. Another said, "He still thinks we're just tired from work." I feel guilty, but not enough to stop. That one felt like acid. I stared at it until my screen dimmed. My body went numb. Mixed in with the screenshots were photos. Not graphic, thankfully, but damning. Her sitting on the edge of a hotel bed, laughing at something off camera. Her wearing the same red lipstick weeks before the rooftop party. Her lying on what I recognized as the couch in Ben's apartment. She had once showed me a picture of it when we were furniture shopping. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a one-time thing. It wasn't some drunken lapse in judgment. This was an affair, in every miserable, soul-destroying sense of the word. I closed the laptop and just sat there. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just breathed slowly, like someone relearning how. I don't know how long I sat like that. Could have been minutes, could have been hours. At some point, I stood up and opened every window in the apartment. I didn't care about the cold. I needed the air. I needed to know the walls weren't closing in. Eventually, I checked the envelope again. There was a small slip of paper tucked deep inside, just 5 words scribbled in black ink. You deserve the full truth. No name, no handwriting I recognized. Maybe a whistleblower, maybe someone from the office, maybe just a stranger who couldn't stand watching it happen. I thought about calling Mallory, asking her why, demanding some kind of explanation. But what was left to explain? I had the truth now, not just in theory, but in color, in timestamps, in her own words. And the most painful part? She never thought I'd see any of it. She had buried it so deep, convinced I'd never dig. But someone else did. And because of that, I was done being the fool in her script. It was time to write my own ending. I didn't tell her I was moving out. I didn't write a long letter or leave a dramatic voicemail. I just quietly packed my essentials, left the keys on the counter, and locked the door behind me one last time. Not with anger, not with some fantasy of revenge, with peace. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is leave without explaining yourself. I rented a place across town, a small studio above a bookstore, owned by a retired couple who brew coffee strong enough to wake the dead and tell stories longer than time. The first few days there were strange, like waking up in someone else's life. I'd reach for a light switch that wasn't there, or expect to hear Mallory brushing her teeth in the next room. But slowly, the silence started to sound different, not empty, open. I got back into embroidery, the business I'd neglected while unraveling emotionally. Orders started picking up again. Amos helped me launch a new online storefront. And for the first time in months, my phone buzzed for something that wasn't a crisis. One evening, I even embroidered the words, "You deserve the full truth," onto a patch and pinned it to my jacket. Not out of spite, but as a reminder. And then, one morning, I got a letter in the mail, handwritten, from Mallory. It wasn't a plea. It wasn't manipulative. It was, for once, honest. She said she was in therapy, that she'd left the firm, that Ben was someone she now saw clearly, which I took to mean someone who used her as much as she used him. She didn't ask to come back. She didn't beg for forgiveness. She simply wrote, "I hope someday you find someone who never makes you question your worth." That was the first time in this entire mess I felt something close to closure. A month later, I walked into that same Italian restaurant we used to love, alone this time. I sat at the table by the window and ordered her favorite dish. Not for nostalgia, for victory, for survival, for the version of me that didn't get destroyed in her storm. The waitress smiled and asked, "Table for 2?" I smiled back and said, "Not anymore. But it will be again, someday." And I meant it. Because sometimes the end of a story isn't the wreckage. It's what you build after the smoke clears. Thank you for sticking through this with me. If you've ever survived something that felt like the end, I hope this reminds you. It wasn't. Life keeps going. And sometimes it gets better than it ever was before. Comment below and tell us about a historical event that changed the world. Or maybe just changed you. We're Reddit Confessions, where every broken chapter leads to a better one.